Hello, listeners. Yamina here. Welcome to the Dr. GPCR podcast. Before we dive into this episode, we have a few announcements to make. We are thrilled to announce that our ecosystem is growing and are delighted to count Domain Therapeutics, GPCR Therapeutics, Design Pharmaceuticals, and Montana Molecular as our ecosystem partners for the next year. Become an ecosystem member yourself and join our partners and your colleagues today. The ecosystem is your GPCR-focused virtual playground. Join over 600 of your peers who have already started exploring, connecting, and collaborating better. You can explore the ecosystem by signing up and getting a free site membership. For the next couple of weeks, once you sign up for the free account, you can watch the talks from the third edition of the Dr. GPCR Summit for free. When you're ready, you can also get a premium membership to unlock the ecosystem's full benefits. If you'd like to register your team or your company, or if you live in a developing country, please reach out to us by email or in the ecosystem, and we'll be happy to help you join us at an adapted premium membership fee. The list of benefits of the ecosystem is quite long. Today, we want to highlight that you can get direct access to our ecosystem partners, ask questions, and who knows, maybe find your next job directly in the ecosystem. We also have a job board. It's a GPCR-focused one where you can explore different opportunities. And if you're looking to hire, you can submit your own job description. Wondering what GPCR meeting to attend next? Well, check out our events page where we have curated the next GPCR meetings for you. In case you're organizing a meeting, fill out the event submission form and advertise your event in the ecosystem directly. Take advantage of everything that the new GPCR dedicated online playground has to offer today. Explore the possibilities by navigating the site using the direct links in the footer. The footer is your best friend. Check it out today at drgpcr.com. And now, let's dive into this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Yamina from Dr. GPCR, and today we are recording a very special podcast episode. I have with me two wonderful people from our team at Dr. GPCR, and I'm going to go left and right. So on the left side of my screen, I have Ines Pinheiro, and on the right side of my screen, I have Montse Avila Sozoya, and I will let them introduce themselves, but just for the audience, we are doing this episode in order to introduce you to our team. Unfortunately, not everyone was able to make it, but this is a behind the scenes as to who is working with Dr. GPCR and what are we doing behind the scenes. So with this, Montse, Ines, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amina, for having us.
So good to have you on. And this was in the works for a while now. So I'm excited that we're able to do this. And so how about we start with a quick introduction from each of you, and we're going to go left to right. So Ines, you have the seniority and you're on my left side as well. So I'd like you to start, and then we can move on to Montse.
So hello, everyone. So thanks a lot, Yamina, for having us on board in your podcast. So we are very fortunate to be part of the team. So just to present myself very briefly. So I'm Ines. I'm originally from Portugal. I did my studies there at the University of Porto. I'm a PharmD by training, so I did pharmaceutical sciences there. It was a 6-year program. And then I started my PhD 3 years ago in Geneva. So I came to Switzerland to do my PhD in Oliver Artlet's lab. So he was also a guest recently in the podcast. And yeah, I joined the Dr. GPCR roughly 1.5 years ago, or almost 2 actually. And I'm part of the team, I would say, almost since the very beginning when this ecosystem idea started as well. So yeah, I guess we'll dive into how where I was involved in since the beginning later on. But this is my background, and now I'm currently in Switzerland. 1 year to go to finish my PhD thesis. Yeah.
Thank you, Ines. And yes, I think it's 1.5 years. You're right. I think time flies, but you're the most senior person on our team. And sometimes I always say, I don't know, ask Ines, because you went through a lot of the changes that we went through. Montse, welcome. You're I think, one of the most junior people on our team. I'm super excited to have you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yes. Okay, well, thank you so much again, Yamina, for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be part of this team. It's an amazing project. And well, my name is Montserrat Avila Sosaya. I like to go by Monse, short. And I studied major chemistry and biology at a small university around near my hometown in Guerrero, Mexico. And in the end, I moved to Mexico City to study for the master and the PhD in cell biology at the institute called Sinvestav, which is like a center of research and advanced studies in Mexico. And well, now I'm currently starting a postdoctoral position in the lab of Dr. Venetia Zacariao at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. And yeah, so I have been here in New York for 2 months, but I'm so excited for this experience. It's challenging, exciting, and yeah, I think I joined to Dr. GPCR in the end of June, of the beginning of July, I think. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Monse. I think it was the time where you were defending your thesis when we got introduced, and that's
right.
around that time. But I'm excited to have you on. I think, you know, you're both GPCR scientists. You have your expertise, and in addition to working in the lab, one doing a PhD, the other one doing a postdoc, you still find some time to help out at Dr. GPCR. But let me start at the beginning. When do you remember the first time you heard about Dr. GPCR? One sec. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think was in 2021. I was looking on YouTube some talks about GPCRs, and I found this Dr. GPCR podcast with Dr. Simon Promel and Ines Lepcher. And because I'm working in that time I was working with addition GPCRs with latrophilins. So I found this podcast, and for me it was incredible because now every time when I read an article of these authors, in my brain I have a face, and I feel more excited and more connected with the information, with the article. So in that moment I start being like a follower from your channel, and yeah, I think that was the first time when I hear about Dr. GPCR.
Awesome, thank you. Ines?
Yeah, I guess it was towards the end of my first year because I wanted to learn a bit more about the field because in my lab we are really focused on chemokine receptors, but at the end we work on GPCRs, and for me it was really an unknown world, and I wanted to explore, so I was just searching for podcasts, and I typed GPCR and I gladly found Dr. GPCR. So this is how I found it, very randomly. Out of curiosity, I wrote GPCR on Spotify, yeah. So this is how it will.
That's amazing. I have another GPCR question for each of you. When do you remember the first time you heard about GPCRs in general, and what got you excited about the topic?
Yeah, this is tricky. I can go on. Yeah. I guess I studied pharmaceutical sciences, so every time we talked about drugs targeting receptors, we kind of touched a bit on G protein coupled receptors and how they work. But I remember this class, and it was very. I actually went back one day in my PhD to see whether I've heard about this, so to make sure that we at least we talk about it a bit in the degree. Because 30% of the drugs we know that they target GPCRs, but for me it was not like clicked GPCR, no, it was like a receptor. But then I dived into the slides because I still have in my drive everything, and from time to time I go there. And yes, we talked about GPCRs briefly, the signaling pathway. So I would say this was the first time I heard about GPCRs in pharmacology 1, actually, in my second year of my master. Yeah,
I think it was the same or similar for me. during the second year of in the first year of the master, we have like different courses. And in the end of this year, I remember we had like a class with all these scientifics from my department. And that was when I met for the first time Anthony. And he gave us a talk about addition GPCRs. So I was really impressed about these complex receptors, because as you know, they can work like addition molecule, but also like a GPCR. And in that moment, everything was new. Like we didn't know about the structure, about all these different functions in other tissues besides a nervous system. So I think that was the moment when I decided like I wanted to study or to know more about this field, GPCR field.
That's amazing. And for the audience, Anthony is Anthony Picard, also, who was on the podcast. And actually, it's thanks to him that you and I got introduced. And I'm so glad you were able to join the team. Kind of mentioned, Monse, that you've heard this talk about adhesion GPCRs, and I guess that kind of determined which way to go, and that's why you ended up doing your PhD in Anthony's lab on adhesion GPCRs. Ines, how did you pick your PhD lab?
Yeah, for me, it was actually kind of random. So first I chose Switzerland, either Switzerland or France, for personal reasons. But then I thought Switzerland was a much more diverse community here, much more multicultural, as far as I knew from feedback from friends. And I knew about this program when I finished my master thesis, and I connect with few people working in Geneva, and also Zurich and Lausanne, just to see like how's life there, how's the PhD, if they are happy or not, to really have like an overview of what would be the best choice, and also university. And then the first PhD, how do you call it? The PhD program that was open, like the course, it was Geneva. So I just applied, and I was the one having more interviews, as far as I know. So we had like during 2 days interviews with the different labs with open positions. I had 12 interviews, so I was just running from lab to lab, and I had to make a choice, and we either have a match or not. And finally, in my paper, I had 2 PIs, Oliver Artley and another PI from the Faculty of Sciences. And finally, I could get a position in Oliver Artley's lab. So I was very attracted by the field, by the project itself, but I was completely diving into something that I never heard about regarding the techniques that we are working on in the lab. So everything was new to me, but I was attracted by the lab itself, the people. Which for me was essential, to be honest, not only the topic, but also the environment. And I made the choice, and finally he also made his choice, because he also had options, right? So yeah, it was a fortunate fortunate decision. Yeah.
I think it's great, and it's interesting, is that I think this is important to highlight for people listening, is that you did 12 interviews, and you saw so many people, and then you made your pick. And I think that's important when you pick your next job, your next training environment. And that's really important to do that. And, obviously Oliver was on the podcast. Oliver and I have this interesting background story. So we worked with my PhD advisor, which I didn't know until I talked to Oliver, and he said, you know what, he taught me to do HIV work. And it was years later that I met my PhD supervisor. So we have this connection in common. And obviously Oliver is such a wonderful person to talk to and to work with, definitely. And I also believe I do have a publication in common with Oliver, which I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't.
2 or 3, I think.
Yeah, it just didn't, crystallize in my brain when it comes to that. So it's a small world. Monse, how did you pick your postdoc position and your PhD as well? I think Both are interesting to hear about.
Okay. After the master, I took a break and I decided, because I was a little confused about if I wanted to stay still in the academia. So I took a break for 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And but this time helped me to realize that I really enjoy being in the lab, do experiments, study about GPCR. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to do it, and I talked with Anthony, and he was open to that. He was open to give me like a project and work with him in his lab. So I started this journey like a PhD student, and after the PhD, we have this another break, no break, but this I'm sorry.
No worries, no, please. Like, you mean reflection time, trying to figure out what next?
Yeah.
And that,
No,
before you continue, I think that's important for people to realize as well, is that sometimes, you have to take the time to decide what next. Sometimes you don't know what next, and that is okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's true, but we have this time during the pandemic that was so hard for me to finish the PhD, and I felt like I wasn't good enough. Like I had this imposter syndrome, and it was a really hard time for me, like, to understand what I was doing in science.
Yeah.
If yes, so after the pandemic, I realized, like, okay, I just spent like almost 5 years of my life doing doing the PhD. Of course, I want to accomplish this goal, because in that moment, to like a personal challenge, and I said, okay, yes, I'm going to do whatever I have to do, because I'm going to finish the PhD. So in 2022, in the beginning of 2022, I had like an accident, in and I broke my finger of my right hand. And I was writing the thesis and the article, because if I wanted to be graduate from the PhD, we need to publish an article. And so that was a really hard time for me, and I was like, why why is happening this to me? And so I don't know. I decided to move to my parents' house, and my family helps me a lot. They were like my support to finish the PhD. My mom, every morning, she have these motivational talks, like, okay, Monse, you can do it. It's not impossible. Use your left hand, because I couldn't move my right hand, so I just had one. So I used to spend all the day just writing with the left hand, and was hard, but at the end, I had all this support from Anthony to finish the article, and when I recovered the movement of my right hand, I felt more comfortable, and I applied for the defense, and so in that moment, when I conclude this final step of the PhD, when I get the title, I asked me, okay, I want to continue, or I want to work in another thing, and I just started using Twitter, and suddenly I just saw that there was many opportunities for postdoc positions, and I was and I always thought that I couldn't be able to be to live in another country and to have this chance to take a postdoctoral position in another country, because first thing, the language, like in my mind, like it's so difficult. Like in my mind was like, okay, I need to talk perfect. I need to be perfect to take that risk or that challenge to live in another country and do science in another country, because it's not just about the scientific part; it's about the cultural part. And I felt in the past, or before I felt of my accident, I felt that I felt like I couldn't be able to do it. But when I had this experience after the accident, I felt like I shouldn't waste more time with my afraid with my I shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yes, afraid about take a risk, that I shouldn't be perfect to do it, and it's fine. Because with the time, if I work hard, if I have discipline, I could accomplish this goal. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to think a lot about this. I'm just going to try. And who knows? So yeah, I start looking for opportunities in different labs. Of course, for me, Anthony was a great mentor. So I talked with him about my interest, and he gave me a really constructive feedback. He pushed me to do it, and and so I was looking like, okay, I want to work with GPCRs, but I know I don't have this strong background of pharmacology, for example, but I'm a cell biologist. So I was trying to look for opportunity to allows me to learn new techniques, new animal models, because I didn't in the past I didn't have the opportunity to work with animals. So okay, I want to learn this, and but also I want something that allows me to introduce or combine my cell biology skills. And I found this lab with Dr. Zacariao, where they study different aspects of pain and comorbidities, but with different focus with GPCRs, signal transductions, epigenetics, and yeah. So that is how I picked this position and came here to New York.
Wow. Okay, so I need to unpackage this because I have goosebumps. You made a lot of very critical points. I'm serious. You made a lot of critical points that are, I think, very good lessons for trainees, whether you're going to do your postdoc or your PhD. And yes, imposter syndrome. I mean, let's just stop there for a second and say, who hasn't felt that? You know, someone asked me this. I don't know who it was recently. Like, do you feel like you have imposter syndrome? Yes, everybody does. The only question is, how do you deal with that? And I think you made the great point of the support. It's important to have support, your family, your friends, and not isolate yourself. And you got that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm sorry that you broke your hand, but then again, it looks like it was a good thing in the end. So I'm kind of glad that it happened. Yes. You know, and the other thing I think that scientists in general, and I'm trying not to generalize, but I'm trying to think about myself, and you just mentioned that, is that we have this fixation in our heads that before we go out to somewhere, the thing has to be perfect. And the answer to that is that it's not true. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't act on it and you don't start somewhere, nothing is ever going to happen. And I think telling yourself,
agree.
okay, right? And telling yourself, okay, I have this idea. This is about, this is the way I want to go. I know it's not perfect, but I still am going to try to do something about it, is always better than not doing anything. And then telling yourself, oh, not yet, because it's not perfect. And bringing it back to the ecosystem and to Dr. GPCR, we started, and I am a perfectionist as well. And I started out, when we started the podcast, it was not perfect. I mean, I feel like we've, from an organizational perspective, from a strategic perspective, behind the scenes, we got to a point where now we have protocols for everything, or almost everything, but we didn't have that. So had we started in 2020 with, in an ideal world, obviously you want to be strategic, you want to plan ahead 5 years and start with the protocol and start with that. But in reality, sometimes you just don't have the bandwidth to do the work and then to do the planning. So kudos seriously to you, and just, go ahead, do it, try it. And the worst thing that can happen is that you're going to learn what not to do or how not to do it. So really,
it's true.
Kudos. And the language barrier, I do understand that. And we talked about it offline as well. And I think that shouldn't stop you, from going out there, because it is part of your personality. It is you get to learn, obviously. And when people talk to me about language barrier, I'm like, yeah, English is not my first language. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is not. There's sometimes words there's sometimes words that just don't make sense to me in English because I just cannot associate them. So that's an additional thing, but that shouldn't stop anyone from trying and learning. Because you should not compete with others. You should compete with the person that you were yesterday and then 2 weeks ago. And as long as you're moving forward, that's what matters.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. No, please go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the language thing, because the first month, I wanted to be outside because I felt like I couldn't express myself. And of course, I'm taking English courses. I took English classes in the university, in school, but I don't know. It's maybe something about my personality, but I felt overwhelmed, and my brain wasn't working. And so the thing is, it's better if you can speak well. It's easier, but if not, I mean, as you said, your dreams shouldn't be stopped, or you shouldn't stop your dreams because your English is not perfect.
No, agreed. And let me just say that you moved to New York. I mean, I think moving to New York is like this big change. I went through similar things, and I was dizzy for the first 2 weeks because there was just so much happening around. And don't get me wrong, I think it's my favorite city. It's the center of the world, but it's just too much to take in.
Yes,
definitely too much.
It's too much. Yeah. I felt that, honestly.
The
noise.
Just, the noise is constant. It's like there's always something happening, and it's New York for sure. Ines, what's your take around the language? Because I know you're from Portugal, you speak different languages. How was the adaptation for you?
Just something, Monse. If you want to relax for a week, you can come to Geneva, because it's the calmest city in Europe.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's so calm here. Oh my
I will.
You are invited officially. Sorry, what was the question? I mean,
I'll repeat
the language barrier.
Yes. Yeah. But once the podcast is published, the invitation is fully official. Then you cannot take it back.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So the language. Yeah. How did you deal with that? I think this is important for people to hear about. Both your perspectives, because you're international people.
Yeah, back in my master's, I actually wanted to. I've had English classes as well, and my parents, they put me in an English school for 3 years during my when I was at high school. But then I was really considering during my master doing a PhD abroad. And the UK was one of my dreams, to be honest. And I went there to do my Erasmus. I found my own placement there. And I was very happy there. I was very attracted by the city, London. I was in London back then. And this is where I really improved my English skills, I would say, because it's really in your daily basis, the daily work. When you really just interact with English, with native speakers, that you get to be like immersed in the language. So this is where I acquired more language skills, let's say. Then I came to Geneva. I mean, this is the French speaking part of Switzerland. I also had some French background, 3 years, but I was very young when I was learning French. So, I mean, I had to start from zero, let's say. I enrolled in some classes here, to be honest, but I just couldn't handle everything, and I quit. But now I can say that I can understand a lot. I can drive a conversation quite easily, but it's not in my top list being an expert in French. But you have to adapt. I mean, and you have to make the effort. And I do make. I mean, when I go out and I go to a shop, I really try to speak French. When they feel I'm not getting the idea, they just switch, because here it's like so international that everyone knows how to speak English. Even in the shops, I mean, people are very have this this big know-how and in different languages in Switzerland. So. Yeah.
And French is easier. I mean, let's face it. French is harder than English to learn, and it's harder to write, and it's a beautiful language. Don't get me wrong, but if you haven't been exposed young enough, then it's, I think, difficult to pick up when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I guess Portuguese is very similar to French as well, so I can just make up some words sometimes. And,
okay, you can think about it.
A little bit of accent, spicy, and
some splicing there of the words, and then you're good to go. But I think you both made great points around, putting yourself out there and going international and learning to adapt culturally, and learning to adapt to the language of the new place, but also keeping in mind that you want to add more to your scientific skills, use the ones that you've acquired during your training, and then take them abroad and learn new things. I think it's really interesting and important to do. Monse, you mentioned animal models. Ines, you mentioned never working on chemokine receptors and not using the techniques that you're using right now. And you're becoming more experts at. Every time you do something new, you become an expert at that thing, because you have to learn it. And then, in 5 years, it's going to be something of the past. Whether it's the language or this technique, you're like, whatever, I did it.
And I guess being like in science, I feel like being a native speaker is a big advantage when you have to write a paper, for instance. But in your daily work, I mean, your thoughts, even if they are now in Portuguese or Spanish, I mean, you are still, thinking and troubleshooting by yourself, and then you make the action, and actually the action is being the lab pipetting, and then you discuss sometimes, and you have some presentations, but you can actually practice that. But what is like very like inherent to someone native is like how to write the message properly, and this can make the difference, I feel. When I compare also my colleagues with the non-native principal investigators, this makes a difference. And I just realized maybe 1 year ago that, so it helps having...
I think it does help. I think experience helps with the scientific style. I think that being a native English speaker helps a lot when it comes to writing grammatically correctly. But I think the scientific style comes with experience. And yes, it's easier to learn.
Read a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely for there. All right. So we talked about languages, we talked about adaptability, we talked about skills. What motivated you to reach out to me, basically? You sent me each an email. I got introductions, but I want to know more about your experience as being part of the Dr. GPCR team. And we're going to tie that together with the skills that you're developing in your daily training and the soft skills that you can use later on. But let's start with how did, you've heard about the podcast, you thought, hey, this is interesting. Monse, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Honestly, the first time when I met you, that was in a cafe, GPCR cafe, I remember.
Yes.
In 20, yes, I remember, yeah, I don't know in what year, but I met you by Zoom. And you inspire me a lot. Like, wow, you're amazing. Your vibe, your energy, and I feel like a woman in science. I need to be next to women on science or from science. So that was the first thing, like inspired me a lot. Like, okay, I want to know more about this person. I want to know more about what is she doing, why, because for me it's like inspirational, like a like a role model. Like in one day, I would like to be so confident and have this a amazing or positive attitude that you all the time have.
Thank you.
And so that was like one of the first things that motivate me to reach out you. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, of course, was GPCRs. Because I knew that this platform that you are building will help me to still connected and update about what is happening in GPCR's field. And of course, when I knew some of the activities I will contribute in this project, I knew that it could, with the time, it will help me to improve my writing skills, my reading skills. So yeah, I felt motivated about all these things, and also, and the last one, but not the less important, the philosophy of the project. Like when I saw the vision of the ecosystem, GPCR, Dr. GPCR, that was to be part of this team that improves healthy and that is trying to be a better world, or build a better world. So it's really amazing. Like, okay, maybe I could have this opportunity to be part of this amazing people that is working in this incredible thing. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, goosebumps. You can't see them, but thank you so much. Ines.
Yeah, I guess I share. So half of my answer, Monse just answered, let's say, because when I started listening to the podcast first, I felt much more motivated in my project. Although all the other projects that are mentioned in the podcast are not completely associated with mine, I feel actually my project is completely outside the box, let's say, which is good, but it makes it even more difficult to achieve, this final goal. But it really, like, my motivation really changed a lot, even if the project was still like in this plateau level, not going up or going down, just plateau. I was motivated just by listening to the podcast. And then I felt at some point, listening so many of them, that you are starting to be a mentor for me, and I felt I wanted to connect with you more, and this is how I ended up applying, because I saw a position in the website, Business Development and Scientific Associate, and I felt, oh, so fancy, and I get to work with Yamina, so this is good. And I just applied, and I'm very open to a career outside academia, as you know. So the more activities I'm involved in, the better. And I felt if I could connect science with the work experience, it was the best marriage I could have as a part-time job. Let's call it. So yeah, but I found everything so inspirational for me, and and all that, the idea to connect with people that I've never seen, because I didn't have at the time opportunity to go to conferences because of COVID. So I felt it was the best experience ever, like scientifically speaking, and personally as well. So I guess it's the simple answer.
Thanks for that. And Monse, you mentioned the being a woman. Well, aside from my husband and aside from now another team member, Nipuna, who could not be here, everyone who's ever worked with Dr. GPCR is female. So we've had the first year we started out, and we had 2 interns, Shivani Sajdev, who helped a lot with the newsletter. I mean, she was the newsletter person for a very long time. And then we had Jing Chong as well, who was finishing up, I think, a master's in Australia. So we're pretty much of and the majority of our team is international and is female, which I think is also very important. It wasn't by choice. We're very inclusive, but it just happened that anyone I got to work with was a female scientist, which is great too. I mean, and if anyone's listening and wants to join in the team, we always need extra hands, which gets me, before we tie into the soft skills, which gets me to ask you, like, if you can describe to the audience what are the type of activities that you do, and what do you learn from that? Because the goal with you helping out is really, one, helping out the community, but also allowing you to stay connected scientifically to the field and learn and broaden your knowledge. So, Monse, I will let you.
Okay.
I'm trying to kind of, balance it out. And one of you is on the right, the other one is on the left. So
yeah, it's fine. Okay. Well, we have like many different activities. Yeah, we read articles. We can write about what we think about these articles about our own perspective, and I like that because we have the freedom. You give us the freedom to express ourselves in a scientifically way, and I think this is important because when we are starting this career, we need to practice a lot, but also like be the thing that we are part of this team, or I'm part of this team, makes me feel confident about what I am doing, because you are, or the team, like Ines and Nipuna, you help me to have this feedback about what I'm doing and if I'm doing a good job or not. So I think this is very important, because when you have these insecurities, do this kind of exercise helps you to have more confidence about your job. And I think this is amazing. And other things I'm learning, being part of Dr. GPCR, is I'm more organized person. My skills are improving in that way, because I don't used to be like that, but now, like, you have a protocol for almost everything, and now it's like, okay, if I was Jamina, I should have these protocols and these protocols. So now I feel like I have more organization in my with my experiments, in my routine, and this is important because you don't waste so much time. You have this task. So what else? I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you made great points there, Ines. I'm going to let you answer, and then I have a couple of things to add to the organizational part of this, which is work in progress.
Yeah, it improved a lot. I mean, it's nice to see the change. Yeah. So at the very beginning, I was involved in the new newsletter. So the collection of the monthly papers. I've also been involved heavily in the social media posts. So I've been working for that for a long time. Then I switched, and now we work together, the team and the newsletter. But now, because of the SOPs and another person who joined to do the more technical work, let's say, now we are more focused on categorizing the papers each week. And we also write for the Dr. GPCR ecosystem. So both me and Monse, we are writers, official writers in the ecosystem, where we are free to write about anything that we like, a paper, ideally, right? And basically, we work on an abstract, a summary abstract of a paper that we enjoy reading about, or that is actually out of our comfort zone. This is what I am actually doing more, not really focusing on my own project, but actually going outside and see what's out there and write about something that we are not so comfortable with. Yeah, I guess there was a big learning curve, and I'm very glad I was part of this growth, because I feel that now we are a more established project, association, whatever we want to call it, ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I feel being part of this progress and get to know like past members, new members, and get to interact and also share my learnings, right, with them. It's also very motivational, and it's very nice to see more people joining. And because a lot of people talk about Dr. GPCR, but then not a lot of people are willing to actually join or willing to know what's out there. And it's actually very nice, this podcast, because they know, okay, there are also there is a team working, and we are welcoming more people to join. And I think this is where the future is comes into place. I mean, a bigger team working for the same objective. And yeah, I feel I really developed a lot of skills. Now going to the skill set, I guess organization, indeed, it helped me to be more organized. It was actually sometimes difficult to manage the time. I'm also working on a different time zone, which can help sometimes and other times not. But I guess it really so my interest for the field was really driven by being involved in Dr. GPCR. And every time now I go to a conference, maybe I know the speaker because of Dr. GPCR, or I know it's his or her science because of Dr. GPCR. And I feel this gave me a lot, both personally and scientifically. And it also gave me a great mentor. And Yamina is you are a great mentor for all of us. And yeah, we are all very thankful for that. I mean, yeah.
Thank you. And I think you made a great point about the organization. And following this episode is gonna get my own episode is gonna get released. And I'm just gonna mention this very briefly. And I think this year has been instrumental in getting these protocols in place. And because now we're an efficient team, or at least I hope that we're more efficient. We're organized, we have deadlines, we have protocols, and also using tools that allow us to communicate and making sure that everything is in order, and also having the ability, the support. Once you made a great point around, honing on your writing skills, your scientific skills, and writing these articles as a writer within the ecosystem is a great way to practice. Not only writing scientifically, but also from a language perspective. And then you get to write about anything GPCR related that fits in the ecosystem. And that's very wide, I want to say. I didn't want it to be narrow. And you get to pick what interests you. I think that has been very important. But knowing that you guys can count on each other, even though sometimes I don't have the time to look over the articles, knowing that you guys can at least have other people to bounce off these, I think it's really important. Skill wise, Ines, you mentioned really some of the skills. Monse, any additional skills you can think of that you learned? I know you haven't been with us as long as Ines, but what are some of the skills that you learned in the past, I want to say 6 months?
I think other skills is work like a team, because we sometimes we used to, because it's easier work in an individual way, but be part of the team, it's a challenge, because you have like a responsibility that affects the work of the other members of the team. So Dr. GPCRs is helping me a lot to understand that role, the role that I have in this team, and the role that I have now in this new lab, and even in my family, or even in this new country. Like, we have a role in every space that we are. So Dr. GPCR is helping me to understand that, and also to communicate with international people. Like this was new for me when I started with you, because I haven't exposed a lot of international people. I used to work just with Anthony, who is from Canada,
and he's so approachable and so wonderful. Yeah, like it's so easy to work with Anthony. Yeah, he's great.
Yes. Yeah, I know. He's amazing. He's amazing. So it has been really amazing in this experience, and I think I know I just have like 6 months working with all of you, but yeah, 6, but has been amazing. I think I have grown a lot and in different ways. So what else? I don't know.
I think that's something important to me as well, is really knowing that you guys are learning. You obviously know, and you have been kind of using me as a resource, and I'm always happy to help. My only request has always been just tell me ahead of time so I can plan for it. But if you need any help at any time, whether you're getting ready to submit a grant, whether you're getting ready to present something, or, Ines, you and I worked on your, I think, 1 minute or 3 minutes presentation.
3 minutes.
3 minute
Yes.
presentation for a PhD. And it was a context. And I really love doing that. I really enjoy working with all of you. And I'm trying to make space in my head and build these protocols, which is going to help Dr. GPCR move on to the next phases and create, space for that. And I'm glad, Monsia, you mentioned that you kind of learned from that as well, telling yourself, okay, if there is a protocol for this, I should have a protocol for that. And I'm happy it's paying off in that sense. All right, we're almost at time, and I have one last question for you guys. Any other advice for your peers from your experiences as international PhD / or postdoc in the GPCR field, and from your time at Dr. GPCR? Any advice for someone who's thinking about starting a PhD or moving abroad, starting I was going to say podcast, but even a podcast if you'd like to, or
even a podcast.
Even a podcast.
I actually got involved in a podcast thanks to you as well, Yamina, here at the university.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, that's great.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I don't know. I think, according with my experience in the last years, I think like it's important do or take the opportunities that you no, like try the things that you really want to do, and even if you are not like perfect, but
don't be afraid.
try. Don't be afraid. Just try it. And if you don't accomplish that goal, you're not a loser because you get the experience.
Lessons learned.
Yes.
Yeah, lessons learned.
And I took
we
it from
start to get like your quotes. And it took some somewhere, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know where I took it from, but I thought it was really interesting that you don't say failure, you just say lesson learned, which I think is way more positive than a failure.
Yes, it's true. Yes. So that could be like kind of advice, but
I think it's great advice. I think it's important, and I think things happen. I saw this cartoon, I think it was on Facebook, where there were these two circles. One, what inside it said your comfort zone, and the other side it says where the magic happens, and you have to get out of your comfort zone to get to that place. And that's scary, that's painful, but that's also very rewarding.
Yes.
Ines, any other advice?
Yeah, for me, I guess before choosing to do a PhD, I mean, make sure that you know what's the next step. Although it's difficult, but for me, I had this perspective in my mind what I wanted to do next and whether this would be a good choice. So I mean, if you are driven by science, academia, really choose a lab that is successful and also with a good environment and a topic that you are really passionate about. Because if you want to do science, you might want to be expert on that topic, and if you start early on, is the best. But then if you want to move and maybe you consider a career outside academia, I guess you have to be wise and choose a great lab as well, but with potential to collaborate with industry, for instance, and even with other labs, I would say. This is very important, and this is what drove me to Artlay's lab as well, because we also have a biotech running the lab. We have a lot of translational science going on. But although I'm doing very basic science, but I can still touch a bit on the bedside, let's say. And I think you have to be very, very wise in your decisions and try to draw your way early on. Because you always find a lot of young people doing the PhD, but also people already with a lot of skills already gained throughout their career. Older people with already 2-3 masters. I have friends who are doing their second, third masters, at some point you have to guide your way and to be wise in your decisions. But for someone who's doing the PhD, I guess the best advice, I mean, never give up, but don't be afraid of giving up, because sometimes you have to reach this go, no go decision, and you shouldn't be afraid to say no. It takes some time to be confident about your project and your ideas and your expertise to say no. And sometimes it's too late. I realize that, but if you can do it early on, it can really drive things like forward, and be surrounded by nice people inside your lab and also outside. Geneva, for example, is a very collaborative school, the PhD school, and I think you should also choose an university that will allow you to collaborate with other labs and maybe have different mentors. Having more than one mentor is always something very, very precious that you can have during your PhD. And this is why I'm here.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think if I want to kind of round it up and close it, I think both of your advice, like the advice that you both gave, is very important, and I think it's very valuable, and kind of put it into perspective as to how to pick the next experience or how to plan ahead. For me, what works out really great is, first of all, to develop protocols, get organized, and I want to say almost time everything down to the minute, so that I know that there is a regular schedule that I need to follow. And then once that is done, I think that quiets down all the noises, all the pathways in my head, and it allows me to say, okay, now I'm putting in 2 hours to do strategic planning for the next year. And that allows me, for example, to think about, what are we doing next year? Are we doing another week of summit, or are we doing, five mini summits around specific topics, which is kind of where we're leaning, and what are the new programs that we're bringing forward with Dr. GPCR. But if we don't have protocols, and I'm always playing catch up, and none of you know what to do and what's the deadline and what does that look like, then I won't have the mental space to build out the next year and the next even 2 to 3 years, strategically. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Actually, if I can,
of course, please.
If I can just say something, because you just said to be strategic. I mean, for me, so being strategic is something that you can only be at some point during your PhD, because I try to plan like yearly my goals, and it's just so difficult to reach these goals and plan in a weekly basis. But you reach a point, I would say third year. I'm already starting my fourth. Yeah. But middle of third year, at least it was for me, that I could start planning better, like monthly, what I want to achieve, what are my objectives. And if you can do that from the very beginning, I mean, you are brilliant. And if you can do it, or if you cannot, I mean, just make an effort, because it will really drive things forward and faster, and you'll be much more efficient.
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too. But I think you make a great point about, having that experience so that you can plan strategically. And we could be talking another hour about this, but about setting goals. So the goal would be, for example, one type of a goal would be to publish a paper in the first 2 years of your PhD. That's a goal. How are you going to break down what are the activities that you need to do? That's a tactical goal. But, or a strategic goal could be finish your PhD in 4 years with 2 papers. And then you can work back. But one interesting thing with the human brain is that when you know what's the end goal, your brain tries to get you there. So when you know what the end goal is, then you can help your brain build out that maneuvering between all those obstacles to get there. The trajectory might not be direct, but at least your brain knows, okay, I want to finish my PhD with 2 papers in 4 years, 2 years. Now, I wish, but who knows? Sometimes it happens because you end up picking up another project, somebody else's project left, and then it can happen quickly. But I think having those ideas, at least trying and adjusting, just because you don't get it right the first time doesn't mean that you should quit trying to plan.
Yeah.
All right. And with this, I think we're going to stop here. Thank you, both of you, for coming. I really enjoyed our conversation, as we typically do during our monthly team meeting. But this was a special place for us to chat. And I hope the audience and trainees will like what they were hearing. As always, anyone and everyone is welcome to send us an email if they want to join the team. We're very happy to talk to everyone from anywhere in the world. With this, both of you, I want to thank you for coming. I want to ask you not to go anywhere as I stop recording, but it was such a great pleasure having you on.
Thanks a lot for
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this Dr. GPCR podcast episode. We'd like to thank our guest and our Dr. GPCR team, namely Attila Forrest, Ines Pinero, Montserrat Avila Zozoya, and Nipuna Murasingo. A huge thank you to our ecosystem partners for their support: Domain Therapeutics, GPCR Therapeutics, Design Pharmaceuticals, and Montana Molecular. You can connect with our partners directly in the ecosystem. You can also connect with our Dr. GPCR team directly in the ecosystem as well. Join us today. Also, please subscribe to the Dr. GPCR newsletter. Find us on YouTube. And if you like our podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also leave us a testimonial at drgpcr.com/testimonials. And another great way to support us is to share your favorite Dr. GPCR program with your network and colleagues. You can email us at any time with any questions or suggestions at hello@drgpcr.com. Until next time, stay safe.